Michelle, it's so good to have you on this podcast. I am so stoked to hear about everything that you do, your background, how you got started, and really providing a ton of value for our audience. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm just so excited to be working with you and to be talking about something that I'm passionate about and hopefully sharing some things that are going to be helpful to your listeners.
Amazing. Can you tell us where you're coming in from?
I am coming in from beautiful British Columbia, Canada.
Wow, I'm a Canadian myself originally, so I feel
Well, yeah,
connected in
that's
that way. Amazing. So let's dive in. Tell me, if you could be remembered for one thing in your career, what would it be?
well, for me, I would love to be remembered as a person with integrity, someone who is really purpose driven around helping people create freedom to have a great business and live a great life, and someone who's had a really positive impact in the world.
Amazing. I think that it's really important to build freedom with so much technology and the world being so fast paced. And it's a rat race oftentimes in business, and just how quickly things are changing in terms of technology and the market and the world. So it's wonderful that you help others create more freedom in their lives and businesses.
Thanks.
When did you decide to begin your career? Can you tell us a specific moment? Was there a turning point that inspired you?
Primarily for me, I come from a technology background. And so I had been working in technology for about 12 years back in the day. It was super demanding. There's a lot of travel. I loved my work. I was broiled and working crazy, and I loved what I was doing, but so much of my life was business and work focused. And so I had achieved a great deal of success in my career. I took a 15-month sabbatical type of thing after burning out, just crash and burn. And I'm a type A. I call myself now a recovering type A, recovering perfectionist and people pleaser. I took that time in my life to think there's got to be more to life than just working like mad. So that really, for me, started a journey to looking for ways to actually put what I had learned into really great use, because part of my work was also being a mentor and a coach and training and different things like that, and sales and account management and things like that. So was looking for ways that I could put all of my skills to use in a way that would really support the lifestyle that I wanted to live and have a big impact for people to help them avoid what happened to me. Really, at the end of the day, how can I use what I learned about my experience to help other people? So that's when I started coaching. I did a lot of corporate coaching and personal coaching at that point in time. And then I actually had a business other than my coaching business, which had 7 employees. It was a retail business. We were open 7 days a week. And then I was expecting my daughter, and same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to find a way to not be working all the time. I want to raise my own child. I don't want someone else doing that for me. I love the energy of entrepreneurs. I love that they have so much energy and they just put everything into their business. They don't give up. They look for new ways of doing things, but they make quick decisions. So to direct that energy in a way that would help them not only have a great business, but also a great life outside of their business.
Amazing. Success without burnout, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Like I said before, we live in such a fast paced world, and it's so easy constantly looking at other people's successes and say, I need to do better. I need to do more. I need to push the envelope. But honestly, at the end of it all, what are we left with? There are some people that's what drives them and they love that or whatever. But there are many that really want to put family first, but also want to be successful. So finding the right balance is really important. It's vital because if you're just working nonstop and you're in a construction project and there's so many different pieces moving, there's so many different factors, or you're doing a real estate deal or whatever, it's constantly go, go, go. And so finding that right balance is imperative because you can't continue going and continue moving forward if you're burnt out. Something's going to give at some point.
Exactly. That's so true.
And with that mindset, you really need to have it's a growth mindset. How do you approach continual learning and professional development so that you can maintain that equilibrium and growth?
Continuous learning seems to be in my DNA. It's something that is hardwired into me. It's always been a priority. One of my core values is improvement. So always looking for ways to improve myself, my business. And this also trickles into my clients. Like, how can we make things better? How can we improve things? Whether it's taking courses, attending conferences. I also do a lot of reading. I usually have one personal development book and one professional development book on the go at any given time. And then the other side of that too is the travel. I love to travel, and I feel like traveling is a great learning experience too, and it exposes me to different ways of doing things. Also, keeping up with trends and technology and those kinds of things are super important too, because they're always evolving. And so looking at ways of getting the most out of myself, people getting the most out of other people, new modalities, that kind of thing.
Right, because when you're constantly learning and growing, you can then apply it to your client's world as well. Because people who are highly successful don't have very much time, what you're trying to give them back. So if you're coming to the table with all this information already, you're on the lookout for them and can constantly come to them with new ideas, innovation, and helping them streamline their operations.
There are a lot of flakes in my industry, coaches, because anyone can be a coach. And I have actually hired people myself who say, oh gosh, I'm going to help you do this. And they don't. Right. And so for me, one of the ways that I felt was really important to differentiate myself, not only that, but also to prove to myself, because as I first started a coach, one day I'm working for someone else and the next day I'm coaching. I pursued an international coaching certification. So I'm an International Association of Coaching Master Certified Coach. And I did that because I don't know if you have or not, but I'm imagining most people, when they're pursuing new things and growing and learning, they sometimes have a bit of an imposter syndrome of, who am I to think that I can do this now? Or so it was also a way of me to demonstrate to myself my proficiencies at my craft, because I went to get my education in business and marketing. I went into my career and learned what I need to do to succeed there. And I felt, as a coach, a professional designation for me, it wasn't so important back in the day, but as time has progressed, because I've been coaching for a long time, so many people enter this space and just don't have that integrity that I've talked about at the beginning. That's a value for me, to be in integrity, and what I'm doing is adding value.
For sure. And being able to provide tangible results, because you said there are many people that are in the space that say that they can do something, or they have fancy marketing language, but they don't actually provide tangible results.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there specific resources or practices that you find particularly valuable in terms of your continued learning?
Really, for me, each year I do a planning process for my business. So I like to take a three-pronged approach to planning, just actually a lot like what I do when I work with business owners and founders and even teams within businesses. It's like I look at, so how do I want my business to evolve this year? And what does that look like? So I think that's a really important thing, having that vision, creating systems, those kinds of things. So looking at this stuff annually, then looking at, for myself, how am I going to evolve myself? What is missing there? What am I going to put to use this year? What am I going to learn? And then with the team. So who's on my team? Do I need new players? Do I need different players? So to me, that whole process really, and running through that, is super valuable. And then revisiting that on a regular basis, I really find that that helps me to stay current and up to date on what's new and different. And then also to evolve and grow, not only my business, but myself and my team, because if they're all so interdependent.
Would you say that's a self-reflection process or a business reflection process?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do a lot of the what went well or what didn't go well, what could be improved, how could I improve it, for lack of a better word, forensic, where looking for clues and looking for the things that are going well, things that working, things that aren't working, and then making those adjustments as required.
You probably do that a lot with your clients as well. I like that, the forensic search. Can you tell me a little bit more about that approach? What's your philosophy when working with teams or clients to help them create efficiency in their businesses, increase productivity, and really maximize the systems within their business?
Well, one of the things that I think is critically important is systemization. So creating some standard operating procedures. One of the things I find a lot of times when I'm working with clients is that everything gets done and everyone knows how to do what needs to get done, but they don't stop and really back it up to identify the steps in the process. Because it's second nature to them and they don't really give it much thought, the business and the transference of information and knowledge can be really complicated and difficult because they haven't really put the thought into, okay, what are the steps in this process? And could we make it more efficient? And is this the best way to do this? So that's one piece that I think is really, really important and that is often missing in businesses. And I use the example of my daughter because she has just been in the process of getting her driver's license. And I have been driving for a really, really long time. And there are a lot of things that I do automatically without even thinking about it when I'm driving that when I was learning and now watching her learn, I had to really think about. I got to put my seatbelt on before I start my car. If you want to pass your test, that's really what you're supposed to be doing. Or the 360 check that you look around and do before you pull out of anywhere, or if you're opening your car door. I just do that automatically. I don't think about, oh, I need to do a 360 check in this situation. There are a lot of things within businesses that end up that way because a founder has created something, they started it off themselves, and then they grew it, and then they just verbally tell people things, and then they adjust as fires come up. So that whole process of really breaking down tasks into systems as much as possible, because that not only makes it clear for people, it makes it easy to train new people. And if someone's out for temporarily or on vacation, we know how it's done. If the founder wants to step away from something, they know, oh, okay, this people know what they're doing. They have that peace of mind. They have that confidence that, okay, people know how to do this stuff. And also really involving the team in the process of creating these procedures so that the people who are doing the jobs can be part of the process of actually creating those procedures, because a lot of times they can identify those efficiencies and say, God, I don't know why we're doing this way, because it seems it would be a lot better to do it that way, right? Because the people who are actually doing that work day to day are really important to include in that process. And a lot of times the procedures come from top down when really it needs to come from within to do that as well. And then revisiting those because things change, as you talked about earlier, and things are always changing and evolving. And when things aren't going according to plan, that can be a way to really identify opportunities for change. And procedures create consistency, which is also really good for not only for the business, but for the customers and for your ability to deliver what you promise. It doesn't matter if it's Joe or Serena or Jack doing this thing, that the customer is going to get what you promise. So those kinds of things are important in terms of systemization and keeping things consistent. And also creating that freedom.
People who are boots on the ground and see the day to day, they're able to really give the feedback. A CEO is the sum. I believe we spoke about this last time, that the CEO we are the sum of the people that are around us. If we can delegate to those people, and people maybe perhaps that are on a higher level or who have skills that we don't, they can really give us the feedback that we need in order to operate at a better level because they're seeing it day to day. And if they are happy, they're staying for longer. And the training is also less costly to implement, less mistakes, etc. So I think that it's efficiency and also cost saving to have all of these systems in place. I believe this is part of your formula. Can you talk a little bit about your formula? Because we spoke about the individual, right? The forensics of the individual. We spoke about the forensics and the systemization of the team. And there's a third component. Can you talk to us a little bit about your formula?
My formula is called a founder freedom formula, what I've created. And it's really about taking a holistic approach to a business to help the business, the founders, and the team members evolve so that the business is running and is highly successful. The people are engaged in the things that they love to do and are strong at and that bring the most value, and that the founders and the managers and leaders within that business are evolving as people and individuals to grow and meet the demands of the business now and into the future. So really, at the end of the day, part of that also is allowing people to step up as leaders in the organization and within the business, right? So if you're in real estate or you're construction or you're managing a project, you're going to eventually have people on your team, and you probably already do. And maybe you haven't really identified all of the needs that you have for that business and identify where the gaps are. Maybe some of the people that you have don't have the skill sets you need. Sometimes you can grow those skill sets within. Sometimes you have to bring them from outside. A lot of times what I find is that when it comes to that whole team process is it can be ad hoc when they're bringing people in. Oh, I need someone and I need them now. When you start to build out and be proactive about how you see your business evolving in the future and identifying where those needs are going to be in the future, then you can start being a lot more conscious about who you bring into the team as well. And then a big part of evolving as a leader within an organization or a business is to be willing to let go of some control. I'm a founder too. It's not an easy thing to do, to let go of control or even take the time to do some of these working on your business instead of in your business. Oh my gosh, because we're so busy running around. But the time we invest in activities like this as founders and leaders it's going to pay back in spades.
In dividends, yes, because especially as we want to scale, you have all these systems then in place, and you have these leaders able to step into the role that they need in order to help grow the team. And as you step back and you can bring more people on to really scale, that really helps it go quicker and smoother without all the bumps. Of course, there are bumps, but it's less so that way.
Yeah, you want to smooth it out as much as possible by being proactive and planning ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you build positive relationships within teams? Any strategies that you use to address their needs and concerns?
The things that I like to do are to really help people know one another and identify the unique value that they bring to the team. So really appreciating founders a lot of times look at them having to know how to do everything. And then the people in the team also look at, I have to know how to do everything. And they are concerned about asking questions or not knowing how to do something. So I think that really at the end of the day, creating that appreciation for the unique value that each individual brings to the table. Collectively, like we talked about, you're the sum of your parts. I'm a sports person. I've played sports all my life. So when I think about soccer was one of my main sports, and I think about a team of soccer, you wouldn't build a team with a bunch of goalies. You wouldn't build a team with only forwards. Right? You got to find people with different skill sets, right? People who can run fast, people who have lots of stamina, people who are the quarterback, the midfielder, they're the quarterback of the soccer field. So you need strong players in every position to win, right? Everything I do in life, I play to win. I don't always win, but if I play to win, then I approach things differently. If I'm like, yeah, I'm going to win this, I'm going to do my best to give myself the best chance to win. That really is how I think it's really important to build a team and build those relationships and that appreciation and that understanding and that culture of making mistakes is a good thing. So I think that when we start to talk about that culturally within a business, it's like mistakes are learning opportunities. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning and growing. And of course, if we're on a construction stage, we want to make sure we're taking care of safety, all those things. Those aren't the mistakes I'm talking about, right? But at the end of the day, if a mistake happens, then there is something to learn there. And really, at the end of the day, I think that's really important. And also encouraging that open and honest communication where communicating not only the good news, but also the tough news, right? How do you deliver and receive that? Because the only way to get better is to be open to feedback, and sometimes it's constructive criticism. And how do we deliver that? How do we receive that? We know, and when we have that understanding of the greater good, and it's all about improvement, not about judgment and failure, I think that that's really important. And then at the end of the day, when we have people focusing on their strengths, identifying the ways that they want to grow within an organization, giving them those opportunities to take those steps to grow. And then that comes into the future planning as well, right? When we talk about succession planning, or we talk about attrition, or someone goes on leave, whatever happens, we have people lined up and set up, and they're also engaged. And circling back to what you had mentioned earlier in terms of keeping people within my organization, it's like enormously more expensive to hire and train somebody new than it is to keep somebody in your organization. and keep them engaged in the long run. And employee engagement is one of the biggest challenges that businesses face. And especially in this current market, it's even hard to find people, let alone good people that you want to keep and who want to stay. So hanging on to those people, making sure they're engaged in ways that's meaningful to them and to your business, look to the future. And those are all things that when we start to treat our people like we care about them, follow through on that, because a lot of people have lip service to that thing, right? Our people are our most important thing. Well, if that's the case, then we really need to communicate and engage and create that atmosphere and that team mentality where they're part of something bigger.
Yes, don't just tell them, show them. And we literally do that through design as well and how we set up a space, because you can feel when somebody cares about you. And there's so many different aspects and so many different ways that you can show that. I love, it's so golden, the analogy of the soccer team, because it's literally that. There's different players who do different things, and not everybody is going to be great at everything. Can they do everything? Maybe. But is that what's going to be best? Or are they going to be the most efficient at that? And I also really appreciate the idea of speaking with them and finding out what they appreciate most, what they want the most, so that they can be taken into consideration in the future.
Yeah, that to me is a really important piece. A lot of times I think we assume things about people without asking, right? Or we look at what we need as opposed to what they want. And I think that having that two-way conversation is so important.
Absolutely. So, how do you collaborate with clients to really understand what their goals are, incorporated into your prescribed solutions?
Whenever I start work with a client, I start out with like a 90-minute strategy session. And the sole purpose of that session is to accomplish that, is to really understand their business. I also want to understand their team, how their organizational structure, the nature of their work and their business, and then also as much as possible the people in their business. Who do you have on your team? What are people doing? And then making sure that everybody is deployed in the best way possible for the business and for them. And then the other side of it, which I think is super important, is this whole idea of vision and values. What's the vision for the business? What's your big idea for your business? And also, what are the core values and how are they showing up in the business? And so sometimes, often, especially when I'm working with my core customer set, they haven't done a lot of work around vision and values. And so this really is the foundation for creating whatever success they want in their business and with their people. So it's a foundational piece of work that I also can help them do. I work a lot on this stuff early days so that we really get a solid feel for how they want to operate. How do they want to be out in the world and with their people and with themselves? And so that process, as much as possible, if they haven't done it already, I will encourage them to include their team in this process as well, so that the team actually is on board with the vision and values.
And that they feel a part of it too, right? Because you have to start with the goal in mind, with the end in mind.
Exactly. So if they have it in place already, we will revisit it, because sometimes they don't communicate it out to their people. It's a plaque on the wall, or it's a thing in their handbook, or it's something on their website. It's okay, how are we living this every day? You can also find ways to get people on board after the fact. And then even through the hiring process, say, okay, this is what we're all about, right? How are we communicating this out into our workforce and to our customers, so that everybody's on board and inspired and moving towards what is most important?
100%. And then integrating it into the culture on a day-to-day basis. That's so cool. In managing projects, what approach do you take to ensure proper communication, collaboration among team members?
Well, I like to do the upfront planning piece. So looking at the whole project, and again, collaboration for me, when it comes to team, collaboration is so important. Agreeing to the priorities that are in place and the timelines and the tasks, and then distributing those out as appropriate. And then for ongoing tracking, I come from a technology background. Since I'm a trailblazer in whatever industry I decided to go in. When I started in technology, the internet didn't even exist. People didn't even know what software was and why they would want a computer at home or on their desk or anywhere for that matter, because they were vacuums in big rooms. Trying to help people see a vision and then track to that, it can be a process. The technology, the way that it has evolved, has really enabled us to distribute so much in terms of we don't have to be in person all the time. But sometimes we want to be. Sometimes it's more effective to be. There are tools, obviously, for tracking, whether it's a project management software or something like Slack is something that I like to use and encourage my clients to use if they're not, because that's a really great way to just quickly keep track of what's happening and who's doing what. And then face-to-face meetings, online meetings, stuff like that. Reporting, there are lots of things you can do. And this comes back to the systems, creating systems for reporting in. How are we doing? Where are we ahead? Where are we behind? I was talking a little bit earlier about the whole idea of changing nature of construction projects, because I've also had a water slide building is structural steel. So I've been involved in how that company works. And things change all the time. Schedule changes. The client isn't ready when they're supposed to be. There's a piece of equipment in the way when you need access to something. A shipment is delayed. There's just so many factors that come into play. So how do we then communicate about those things? And how do we maybe redirect so that we're not losing a whole, whatever, day or 2 hours? Or what are some of the things that we can be doing in place of the thing we thought we could do to move things forward, right? So really that goes back to this whole regular feedback process. Or, geez, I've got 2 guys that didn't show up for work today. What am I going to do? Do I hire labor ready? Do I have backups on call? What are the systems that I have in place for dealing with different situations, right? So keeping that communication open and then making those adjustments as required.
I love that. Technology has played a huge role in helping companies to systemize. I think it's essential. It's not anymore something that is a maybe, but I think that it's integral to the success and scalability of any organization. And especially when it comes to collaboration and making sure that everybody's communicating, everybody's on the same page. We have RFIs, requests for information. It can be documented and have somebody, the contractor on site, take a picture and send out to the designer or whatever. I need more information on this. How do we approach this or whatever? That technology really allows for the collaboration and the ability to get things done quicker, as well as the systems, as you mentioned, that are already in place to bring people on. How are we communicating with them when we need to replace somebody that hasn't come to the job site and we have people ready to go? And with that, what are some common challenges that you face in the process? How do you overcome them?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is a resistance for founders or managers relinquishing control. Putting something in someone else's hands. And I get it because it's important. It's their business. Sometimes it's like their baby. They literally birthed this thing and here it is. And it's a growing thing. And they also have a level of ownership about it that is commendable, but also can be the thing that's in their way and that's inhibiting them from growing and creating the freedom and things like that. So that's definitely a challenge. And also I talked a little bit about this whole idea of the time. Time is either a friend or a foe. And most people are so busy, they don't stop or they won't stop. But the question then becomes, what are you doing instead of focusing on working on your business instead of in it? What are you doing in your business that you could delegate or outsource to create more time to work on these things that are important that will then save you time, save you money, create efficiencies, create ease, create seamless onboarding, just things like that. And I hear it all the time. Time, right? And then the other way is this idea of, I've been doing this for a long time and this is the way we've been doing it. And I think this is the right way to do it. And that's not always the case. In fact, it's not often the case. Is that just because I've been doing something for some way for a long time doesn't mean that I should continue doing it that way. I think that's in terms of the process and the challenges that I face. Those are some of the main ones for sure. And then even developing the people skills, the emotional intelligence skills to operate in the world today and still get the best out of people. At the end of the day, you want people to feel they're valued, that they're on purpose, they like what they're doing, they're contributing to something bigger. And how do you get people to care about your business as much as you do? You lead them, you train them, you listen to them, and you trust them. So that's really, at the end of the day, you turn some things over. And the other side of it is a lot of that comes down to perfection too, right? Allow them to make mistakes. Allow 80% effectiveness to be good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. Letting go of that idea of perfection is hugely liberating, but it's also hugely impactful when it comes to creating results.
Yeah, and I think that you need somebody who is not in the day to day, somebody who is objective from the outside, somebody like yourself, to come in and just do an analysis, forensic analysis on all the moving parts of the business to see where it can be optimized, how to make those improvements, how to encourage the team to communicate that exactly, because it's really, really vital, as we said before, to value the people on your team and make them feel, which is absolutely true. And it's not just some reverse psychology or sideways psychology. It's in truth that you can't literally run the team, run the company without them. If they're your A players and they are there in it to win it with you, alongside you, then they need to be absolutely valued and know that they're being listened to. They can make mistakes. It's a safe place for them to work emotionally, physically, and all of that. What are some lessons that your job has taught you that you think everybody should learn at some point in their life?
One of the things that was really an epiphany for me, there's no other way to put it, is that productivity requires downtime. And that was one of those things I just was back when I was driving and working and working and working. If I don't take time to rejuvenate, recharge, relax, I'm not bringing my best to the table. And it's the law of diminishing returns. And I've experienced this myself where I've got my times where I'm most effective and efficient. And then over time, as my energy drains and I get stressed and whatever else happens, I'm not as productive. I'm not as effective. I'm not as patient. I'm not as whatever, fill in the blank, because I'm not taking the time for me to do what I need to do to be performing at my best. And so really putting my own self-care and my own needs at the top of my list serves everyone and everything and my business. So that whole idea of productivity was really shifted for me. And I think that's a really important message, is that productivity doesn't mean working 12 to 14 hours a day. Productivity means taking care of yourself so that you've got the energy to do your best for the business and operate at your peak performance levels and not burn yourself out and drive yourself into the ground. And that is also an example for other people in your business, right? You don't go out for dinner with your family and be checking your phone for work. It's just like, who's important and what's important. And that's really what you want to be focusing your time on. It's like, who's important and what is important. So yeah, your business is important, but you also have important people in your life. You're important to yourself. Your team is important. There's so many different layers to that are important to consider, because if you're out there killing yourself for work, then you're setting the example. That's what you expect other people to do. And if you truly want to build a business that people will be there for the long run, that they feel jazzed about to go to, they have energy for it. I'm not going to put some Pollyanna shiny coating on anything. Sometimes jobs are tough and sometimes days suck. But when you have that bigger feeling and knowing that you're valued and that you're taking time for yourself, you're allowing your people to do that, they could dig deep in the times that they need to, because let's face it, it happens, right? That's the norm, then something needs to shift.
Absolutely. I love that. That's such fantastic perspective that you have. And I'm so happy that we're sharing all of this knowledge with our audience. So, in wrapping up, what is one question that you wish that I would have asked you? How would you have answered?
Well, I guess the one question for me would be, what's most rewarding about my work? Because to me, my life's purpose is really helping people in business, but also this can be translated into any working environment, really any job, because I was working in a corporation and I was working crazy. I've been a business owner working like crazy. You could be a nurse working like crazy. You can be construction working like crazy. I know construction days are really long, right?
Unless you're working in a co op.
Yeah, I find the most reward when I see people create that freedom and actually have it all, whatever that means to them. So when I see, in my case, I work with a lot of founders. So when I see founders, I help them reclaim 10 hours a week without sacrificing business success, right? And so that's a big thing. It's like, how do I get out of here without having my business go down the tube? So when I see people making the adjustments and creating their businesses and their teams to support that whole idea, that big idea of a great business and a great life, and actually live that. And they're not missing their kids' sports games. They're not late home for dinner. They're actually participating in their lives, having fun outside of work, bringing that energy back to work. It's just a beautiful cycle that I love to be a part of, and having them directing all the energy they have. Because entrepreneurs, and I consider anyone, whether you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, working in management, you have this energy. And when you can direct it all in the ways that create your ideal scenario, that's magic. It's golden.
That's amazing. I love how you're driven by purpose. And I think that the systems is the what and passion is the why. So that's really, really cool. What are some like takeaways or tips that you can give our audience that they can take away and start implementing now?
The first thing I would say is if you haven't already, start getting standard operating procedures in place. Identify some standards and simplify them as much as possible. I think for me, complexity is just waste. So break it down to its simplest form. And again, engage your team in the process, because their collaboration, if there's one message I got to get through today when it comes to teams, and is collaboration. You have a gold mine of information, experience, and knowledge to draw on. You're not alone. So use that to your best advantage and make sure that you're including them in the process. And again, circling back to this whole idea of you are the sum of the people on your team. So make sure you have the right people on your team, and that's going to give you the confidence and peace of mind to grow your business, deliver what you promise, and get the heck out of there and have some fun.
Amazing. Everybody wants to have fun. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining. This was a blast. Where can my audience find you?
Thank you so much, Leah. I can't even tell you how wonderful it's been to connect with you and just to have this amazing conversation. So thank you for that. Probably the best place to reach me is going to be my website, which is michellerichandson.com. I don't think I need to spell it, but Michelle has 2 L's. You probably see me, michellerichandson.com. And then I have my social links on my website as well. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Is a great way to connect with me, but I also am active in Facebook and Twitter, or Facebook and Instagram. I've never been a big Twitter, now X person. So
amazing. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.